Hello everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another episode over here on That's Comical of Stats, Trends, and Picks. And if you happen to be watching on a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Well, July was definitely an enjoyable comic book reading month. There were definitely some really good things to read, especially when it comes to some of the indie comics. But also one of the big things that happened was two of the big comic crossovers officially got underway with Dark Crisis over at DC, as well as Axe Day of Judgment over at Marvel. They are definitely off to an interesting start. There's some people that really enjoy both of those crossovers. There are people that absolutely despise those crossovers, calling them meaningless. But I am really curious as a comic book reader to see if the big two really has what it takes to give us a really engaging crossover story that they sort of have failed to do for the last couple of times that they have done so, even though they do have some really good writers. We also had a really nice ending to July with the 900th issue of Amazing Spider-Man. And I will say that even though it was not the best read, it was definitely a fun read because it sort of had that classic Spider-Man charm, and they wanted to pay tribute to some of the greatest moments in Spider-Man, particularly Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six, in a very unusual way. But anyway, let's take a look at how July 2022 was, especially because we also had San Diego Comic-Con and some big news, including the announcements of MCU's Phase 5 and a tease to Phase 6. So I was really surprised by how July went when we take a look at the numbers. It was unfortunately a very small comic book haul month because there were a couple of reschedules. They seem to still be doing that, particularly when it comes to Marvel Comics and some of the small indie companies. But it was a total of 42 books, and a big surprise was the fact that Marvel, for the first time in a while, as a matter of fact, when we take a look at the statistics of 2022, never actually happened. They only tied DC in March, and this time they slowly squeaked by with 13 Marvel Comics and 12 DC Comics right behind them. But I will also say one of the biggest surprises for me was the fact that I had such a small amount of indie comics. I don't know why that is the case, but I don't see this trend continuing for the rest of the year. I mean, granted, there are some really big comic books that Marvel gave us over the last couple of months besides the crossover. We also got the beginning of the miniseries of Gambit by Chris Claremont, which was one that I was really excited about, as well as the Al Ewing tribute to Ant-Man with that 4-issue miniseries beginning at the end of July. So I'm really curious to see how those are going to continue on. So then, of course, when we take a look at the graph, you can see just a little slightly higher than DC, but Marvel got out on top. But let's see exactly how it ends up. I'm also really excited for August because it is going to be a 5-week new comic book month, but at the same time it is also going to be my birthday month, so I am very excited to see what we have in store. So let's see how I ended up doing in regards to my predictions in July, as well as what my picks for August are going to be. So how did I do for July 2022 in regards to my predictions? Well, 1 correct out of the 4. That's not the worst thing in the world. But I will definitely say that there were a couple of big surprises that I didn't see coming, and at the same time there were also just a couple of things that sort of disappointed me. I mean, one of the few things that I definitely have noticed in regards to my statistics is the fact that my reading of independent comics has actually gone down a little bit slightly. Not to say that there haven't been any great indie comics out there. I mean, I'm still very much invested in Department of Truth, in Stillwater, the Silver Coin, We Only Find Them When They're Dead, all great reads. But at the same time, I've also seen myself cutting myself off from a few. In July, I officially cut myself off from my second of the 4 Spawn titles, which is The Scorched, just because even though it is an enjoyable comic, the story is just not engaging me, and it doesn't seem to be really connected by the Spawn story that I'm very much interested in. King Spawn and regular Spawn are the only ones that seem to really be part of this Dead Zone storyline at this point in time, even though people are still saying that The Scorched and Gunslinger Spawn are great. And I also stopped reading Rogue Sun, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So, in regards to July, I had predicted that for the first week, Twig was going to be my number 1, issue number 3 from Image Comics by Scotty Young, and wouldn't you know, I was right. Twig is turning out to be one of my favorite reads of 2022. It is already my #1 in my top 10. I am going to be really upset if this story does not continue after issue 5. There's just a world here that I want to explore so much more, see some more of the characters, so who knows what's going to happen once issue 5 is officially released, but I will definitely say that I'm really looking forward to issue number 4. For the second week of July 2022, I thought I was going to be giving it to King's Spawn issue number 12, which was the end of the second story arc. It was a great end to the story arc because it definitely wanted me to continue to read the third arc. But surprisingly, the comic book that ended up being the best, because that also was a very bad reading week. I really did not enjoy most of what I read, but I gave it to DC Comics Black Label Rogues issue number 3 by Joshua Williamson. I have actually been having a lot of fun with this soon-to-be-concluded 4-issue miniseries, and I have just been loving the story. It's got a lot of fun to it. It reminds me a little bit of Suicide Squad, but in a very different way, and I also just love the fact that I get to explore the Flash's Rogues gallery, because next to Batman, the Flash has probably got the strongest gallery of rogues in the DC universe. For the third week of July, I was planning to give it to Maestro issue number 5 by Peter David over at Marvel Comics, which officially concluded the Maestro trilogy. It was an amazing read. This whole saga of Maestro has been absolutely awesome. You have got to read them all. Maestro, War and Pax, World War M, unbelievable stories. Maestro World War M issue number 5 was a great conclusion, and it just says at the end, go read Future Imperfect, which I've already done. But it was really nice to say that for the second time since I've been recording these videos, that the third week of July 2022 ended up in a tie. One DC comic, Jurassic League number 3, written by Daniel Warren Johnson, and a big surprise from Scout Comics called She Bites. These two books are just flat-out fun. There is so much action and comedy in both of them. She Bites had a ton of shock value to it. It's the story of a 139-year-old vampire trapped in a 9-year-old girl's body, and she just wants to get out. I just thought that that was such a great idea for a book. I was on the fence, but the comic book community here on YouTube was saying it was one of the funniest reads of the week, so of course I picked it up. And Jurassic League has just been flat-out fun. Daniel Warren Johnson just knows how to have fun in comic book writing. And for the final week of July 2022, I was planning to give the top pick to Marvel Comics Gambit issue number 1, just because of the fact that it was the return of Chris Claremont, and all the covers of this 5-issue miniseries are going to be done by Whilce Portacio. It was a fun comic, don't get me wrong, I really had an enjoyable time reading it. But I ended up giving the top spot to Rogue Sun issue number 6 by Ryan Parrott over at Image Comics. This is part of the Radiant Black universe, and I loved how this story arc concluded. It was a fantastic 6 issues to start this series, but I will also say that just like a couple of months ago when I decided to conclude my reading of Jed MacKay's Moon Knight with issue number 6, just because I thought the story arc was just so perfect when it ended, issue number 6 of Rogue Sun was the exact same thing. It was a perfect ending to this story arc. I really didn't feel the need to read on, so I officially am stopping my reading of Rogue Sun. But I will still say that this was definitely a good book. I think it's better than Radiant Black as far as I'm concerned. So if you want to read a little bit more in the Radiant Black universe over at Image, I would highly recommend that you pick up the first 6 issues of Rogue Sun. I think you will really enjoy them a lot. So that is what July 2022 gave us. Let's see what my predictions are going to be for August. Once again, I'm very excited because of the fact that it is my birthday month, as well as a 5-week new comic book day month, and we definitely have a lot of stuff, lots of great comic books coming out. The big crossovers over at Marvel and DC are still continuing, and I am just not even going to go into those details because there's no reason. For the first week of August, I am just going to be going right back to Twig issue number 4 by Skottie Young over at Image Comics. I am planning for this to be my favorite read of the week, because as of now, every single time that Twig has shown up on the comic stands, I have given this my top pick of the week, and I am just so glad that I decided to pick them up because I was on the fence. Twig has been a winner. It really has. For the second week of August, I am giving it to Jurassic League issue number 4 over at DC Comics, once again by Daniel Warren Johnson. The first 3 issues have just been flat out fun. The third issue just getting introduced to the Flash and Green Lantern and Atrocitus in dinosaur form have just been fun. Even Aquaman as a dinosaur showed up. Loved it, loved it, loved it. You have to read this book. I am just anticipating to continue to have fun with this 6-issue miniseries, and I'm really hoping that this world will also continue, much like Twig. For the third week of August, I am going to be going over to Marvel Comics, and I am going to be giving it to Hulk issue number 8, the final part of Banners of War. It has been forever since part 3, so I completely forgot what this story is even about, but all I know is that it's Donny Cates writing it, so I know it's going to still be great, and I don't know why this story has been pushed off so much. Same thing with Thor. Donny Cates just has some really good stories in the mix, because after this crossover, I'm definitely going to continue to read Hulk and Thor, because there are some really good things coming towards the end of 2022. For the fourth week of August, which is also going to be the week of my birthday, I am giving it to the Department of Truth issue number 20. This series has just been getting better and better with every issue, and issue number 20 is a big staple. I am anticipating Image and James Tynion IV not to disappoint me over here, because I have been surprised by how this story just continues to get better and better and better. I loved the first story arc, wasn't sure how I was going to feel after it, but the second arc, very good. Third story arc, very interesting. I think that includes my favorite issue of the series so far, but so far the fourth story arc has been amazing. And to conclude August, we are going to be giving it to the conclusion of one of the best stories that you are probably not reading right now. Superman Warworld Apocalypse. This, of course, is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson over at DC Comics. He has been writing Action Comics since the beginning of Infinite Frontier. He has probably been giving me one of the coolest Superman stories that I have read in a while, probably since Dan Jurgens and Peter Tomasi were thrown off of the books. The Warworld saga has been action-packed, beautifully drawn, and the story has just been so thought-provoking and deep. I don't know why more people are not reading Action Comics right now, because Philip Kennedy Johnson has been doing some of the best work that I have seen in DC as far as I'm concerned. And Superman Warworld Apocalypse is going to conclude the Warworld saga, and I'm even more excited for what's in store for Superman towards the end of 2022, because, unlike what happened with Superman in Future State, Superman is coming home. And the big question is going to be, how has the world been doing since I've been gone? And more importantly, how has my son been doing taking my place? I am really excited to see how this story concludes, and I'm just so excited to continue to read on with Superman and this incredible writing of Philip Kennedy Johnson. And that is going to wrap up another Stats, Trends, and Picks. Please put your comments in the box below. I would love to know what some of your favorites were in July. And I'm really looking forward to finding out what some of your picks for August are going to be. But in the meantime, everybody, I will see you in the next one.